2024 seemed to be the year of Grendizer. We had the video game Feast of the Wolves, and Titan Comics acquired the license to release the French Grendizer comic book. This wondrous occasion was made all the more special with the release of Studio Gaina's Grendizer U, featuring character designs by Evangelion's Yoshiyuki Sadamoto, mechanical designs by AF Kuro, Junichi Akutsu of Code Geass and Gundam Seed, and Wataru Inada of Witch from Mercury, helmed by Mitsuo Fukuda of Gundam Seed. I am Davis Madole, aka TitanGoji, and joining me today is Lily of Kaiju United.
Uan everyone, I'm happy to see you all again as I get to talk about Grendizer for an unprecedented amount of time with Davis, and how much I absolutely enjoyed the insanity that was Mitsuo Fukuda's take on the mythology of the series. I hope you guys get a kick out of soap operas as much as I do.
Being a spin-off of the 1975 Grendizer manga by the legendary Go Nagai, Grendizer U follows the story of Duke Fleed, who escapes from his home planet after a devastating attack provoked by the villainous Vega forces. Duke finds himself on Earth with amnesia, where he unites with the pilot of Mazinger Z, Koji Kabuto, as well as Sayaka Yumi. When the Vega Star Alliance arrives on Earth, Duke's memories begin to come back as he must fight with his newfound family to protect his new home from these invaders. Spoilers will be mentioned, but we will do our best to keep it at a minimum.
First off, the one thing that struck me from the moment this series was announced is the sheer novelty of living in an age where we're having brand new Go Nagai Dynamic Pro media. So when you have this announcement come with the fact that you have Mitsuo Fukuda of Mobile Suit Gundam Seed in charge of the direction, it felt almost very coincidental, seeing as by the time this was announced, you and I were in the midst of watching Seed Destiny. It felt like we angered the gods or something. The guy who made two shows that we don't like in charge of something that we do like. But I was really happy that we were proven wrong. I definitely fell for its unique charm. It felt like something that you could only get if you had Mitsuo Fukuda in charge of a Grendizer series.
So I actually have a bit of a love-hate relationship with Grendizer. This came about when I read the manga for the very first time. I was in love with Duke Fleet as a character. I really liked the tone, the themes, the tension, drama, but it doesn't get an actual ending. I've not watched the Toei Grendizer anime at the time, so when Grendizer U was announced, I honestly couldn't help but be excited, but as more info came out, I started to be a little more skeptical. When the show finally came around, I was blown away. I greatly anticipated each new episode that came out. I really loved what they did with the story. I really loved what they did with the drama early on, the way it established itself as a redemption story mixed with an alien invasion story, while also touching back on the earlier themes of the Mazinger trilogy. It really showed a lot of promise as a new adaptation of Grendizer. But towards the end, my enthusiasm started to wane for reasons we will get to. Aside from that, Grendizer U is a unique show. As much as I wish it did more, given modern anime industry and the budget that I imagine they were working with at the time, it wasn't enough to be the Grendizer anime for me personally, but I'm sure someday we'll hopefully get to that point.
I think it helped that once we actually saw it, our suspicions started quelling, especially when you have Ichiro Okuchi of Witch from Mercury, the two Revolution Girl Tina mangas. He also wrote screenplays for China Gundam. It's just insane to me to think how Grendizer has this longevity thanks to how it internationally appealed to other audiences like France, Italy, Lebanon. Just anyone in the Middle East who got to see the show, it just latched onto him because to them it felt very personal to how they were living their lives every day.
especially when you consider the history of those regions and what ends up making the themes of the original Grendizer manga and anime more universal in that sense. It really makes it easier to connect with Duke's struggle and the pain that he endures.
That's what makes this anime being financed by a company from that region and readapting the first episode of the anime to put it in a Arabic region. It's a bunch of people who clearly love Grendizer and Mazinger as a whole making something together that expresses their passion for the project. For any of you who are very familiar with Mitsuo Fukuda, you grasp the fact this man really, really loves soap operas. Here, it's so cranked up to 11, especially when you get to the end of the show, where characters are making such stupid decisions based off a sense of protecting the person they love, but in reality, they are just fucking things over. We got to watch this air, and we had to deal with crab sticks. They really make Grendizer feel like a figure of power in this show. It feels like you're witnessing like an icon.
That's easily got to be like one of the best first episodes of any show that I've ever seen. The way it established the main central conflict, the way it raises questions about Duke's past, this sort of like path of redemption that we get to see him try and overcome, it really made for something super intriguing, super alluring, and something very unique for Grendizer. Because yes, it's pulling from various Grendizer stories, but at the same time, it feels very fresh. It feels very much like its own thing. And it was a very strong, hopeful impression of what was to come after that.
I think the thing I appreciate the most is how a lot of the characters are reinterpreted. I love Sayaka and Koji in this show. They're so dorky, as they absolutely should be. It feels like a mature version of the characters from the manga. Which Yoshiyuki Sadamoto, he did a really great job at adapting these characters into his art style. Sadly, we never got to see Boss in the art style, which is a terrible shame. The show would have automatically been perfect.
What he really excelled at was breathing new life into these 70s designs in a way that makes them very appealing. Everybody maintains all their notable quirks, all their notable features, even though Sadamoto's style is very distinct and different from that of Go Nagai's to a tremendous degree. He did a really incredible job reinterpreting that style in a way where you still feel like you're seeing the same characters.
I love Grendizer's design, and I love Mazinger. It's very beautifully blocky compared to how very sleek Grendizer looks.
I really love how each mech design has its own unique identity, its own unique build, its own unique set of abilities, as well as like an interesting use of colors, taking all those unique shapes that Go Nagai drew way back when, reinterpreting them in a way where it still has that retro sci-fi aesthetic. One thing that really stood out to me for Grendizer U is how it handled the mythos of the story, these touches of romance and melodrama. It's oddly very welcoming for a story like Grendizer, but then it reaches a certain point where I really was not sure how to feel about it after. So Duke as a character is already going through plenty of odds. He's at blame for nearly destroying his entire home planet. He's a fugitive. So when he gets it becomes a little more upsetting. Like, this guy already has a lot to deal with. You did not need to take it that far. And then the way it's resolved really left me scratching my head. It kind of gets shrugged off to the side for the sake of a love triangle during the end game of this show. Even that in itself is kind of ridiculous. I was very caught off guard by that, and that's when it hit me. Fukuda just did Gundam Seed again, but it's not as terrible somehow.
Since you brought up the love triangle and stuff, what did you make of Rubita and Tirana?
They started off as very strong characters. I really enjoyed the tension that was kind of brought upon by Rubina and Duke's relationship, and I also like Tirona's presence and her undying loyalty to Rubina. We see a kinder, more gentle, and hopeful side of Duke, where we really buy into their relationship as well as their commitment to one another. As for Tirona, she really came off as a very memorable antagonizing force, which makes it all the more interesting considering that Rubina and Tirona are the same faction, but their perspective on Duke is wildly different from one another.
I do think what's funny about the love triangle thing is that it does show this unique interpretation of how friends and loved ones deal with such a heavy loss or feeling of utter betrayal, where Tirona, who had as much of a close bond with Duke as Duke had with Rubina, her being in love with him is completely stupid. I think it kind of just adds to how utterly bonkers the entire framing that Fukuda goes for in this show. Having just a random twist where it's a love triangle between two sisters and this little puppy boy. It's literally just a group of teenagers who literally are so god-awful at like talking to each other. I can't help but admire that. I'm sure if the show was 13 episodes longer, it could have handled it better. Yeah. But at the same time, I think I wouldn't change anything about the show because I don't think I would have enjoyed how like completely off the rails it goes if it was longer. I adore this show. It's so fucking stupid. The Vega army, they're kind of just standing up there. And they're like that in the manga too. They kind of just stand up here and do nothing. The seiyus do a really fun job. They're clearly having fun. It's so theatrical for like no reason. I guess that's a thing that's just going to come with Grendizer. Or I guess Mazinger General is that besides the point where they need them to do something, your main villains, they're just going to stand, do something, make someone do something for them, and then you just have a random guy do shit for them. It's a 70s show made in the 2020s. It's stupid, it's messy.
Grendizer U is pretty heavy on 3D CG for its animation. There is a surprising amount of 2D at play.
When they blend it together well, they blend it together really well, even if it is in itself a modern anime industry cost-cutting measure for mecha, since animating these in 2D is just so incredibly expensive. It feels like a genuine treat.
Grendizer U is the best Grendizer anything, even if it has its problems. The action, characters, animation, all of it is done so beautifully well. Even if the story does take a bit of a nosedive towards the end, it definitely has its own charm and appeal to it. That said, I would oddly recommend it for anyone who's curious enough.
If this show is a gateway for more people to check out Grendizer, and then by proxy Mazinger, and then just mecha as a whole, I'm happy. Unfortunately, are going to have to take to the 7 Seas just to watch it, because we do not have any sort of official release over here.
If you enjoy modern takes on classic mecha, especially surrounding themes of found family and trying to become the best of both worlds, check out Titanious Book 1, Rise of the Titans.
It's a great book. Please read it. Buy his book.
Buy my book.
Buy his book.
Buy
before
my
it's
book.
too late.
Before it's too late, people.
And after that, watch Robot Taekwon. Greatest South Korean mecha anime ever to exist. It may inspire the next Titanious if he ever wants to make it. Thank you, Gun and Calf, for introducing us to Taekwon V. I am severely brain damaged. Davis never wants to watch it again, but he will. Read Titanious, Book 1. There's a very gorgeous art and a very meaningful story at the forefront of its many shameless mecha battles. So please, buy this book, read it, or I don't know, pirate it, then buy it. Is there going to be an audiobook?
There are no plans for an audiobook, but if there's enough demand, I'll try to do it.
Subscribe to the Patreon. Show him the money, he'll do it. I am Lily. I write for Kaiju United sometimes. I am currently working on a new write-up regarding one of my favorite horror films ever. I also am on the Toku Titan cast. I'm still new to it, but I absolutely love every single one of the people that I host with. I would not trade any of these people for anything besides maybe a bottle of Mountain Dew.
Let us know if Grendizer U is for you in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys like what you see, feel free to support the channel on Patreon through the link below. Special shout out to my channel members as well. Feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and see you guys next time. Take it easy, everyone.